Rob will be here shortly. He's got some family things to take care of, and he'll get here when he gets here. I would ask that you all please stand, face the flag, and if so inclined, join us in the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. I've not heard of any additions or changes to the agenda.
No.
Okay. With that, I would like an approval of the agenda.
I'll make a motion to approve.
I'll second.
Approved by Jerry, seconded by Kurt. Other discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. No scheduled presenters. Public input. Due to data privacy concerns, a speaker may not address criticism toward an individual employee during public input. Individual complaints should be handled privately with the administrators and or the superintendent. Comments from the visitors must be informational in nature and should not exceed 3 to 5 minutes per issue. The board cannot engage in discussion at this time or debate in those times, but will take the information and find answers if that is the appropriate outcome. As part of the board protocol, it is unacceptable for any speaker to slander or engage in character assassinations. If we have any multiple speakers on the same topic, I would ask that we limit it to 2 people, so otherwise we get into the situation where there's a lot of redundant conversation for the same topic. So, having said that, we would entertain public forum. Anybody who wishes to speak, please raise your hand, be recognized, and tell us who you are. Young lady, front rows, please stand up.
I'm Emma Conley. I'm a sophomore. This was the first year I joined debate, and it was one of the best decisions I have ever made. It is my understanding that debate could be cut, and I'm here to share my story and why I think it should be kept in Cannon Falls schools. Debate has taught me and so many other individuals valuable skills that we can use in our lives. Cannon Falls has seen success from the debate program, and students learn to debate both sides and learn the value of research. Several people who are in debate go to make a difference in the world. Former Cannon Falls students like Miranda Felton and Cindy Earhart participated in the Cannon Falls debate program. Cindy attends George Washington University and Miranda attends Georgetown University. Both of them credit a lot of their success back to the Cannon Falls debate program. Valuable skills learned from debate can be taken out into the real world. Debate teaches you to argue both sides. The topic I had in November was discussing if universal background checks should be implemented across the country. During season, I had to argue for and against this topic. Arguing both sides of such a controversial issue made me more informed on the world around me, and my mind was open to different points of view. Understanding what was going on required a lot of research. Debate taught me the value of research. Lots of hours went into researching a debate topic. Reading and becoming well-informed taught me and the entire team a great work ethic that we can now use in our everyday lives. Debate has taught me skills that I could not receive from another program at this school. It may have only been my first year, but joining debate was one of the greatest choices I've made. Not only am I more informed about the world around me, but I can also think fast on my feet. I learned that there is 2 sides to every argument, and people may disagree, and that's perfectly okay. Debate is a unique opportunity for this school, and it is beneficial to be kept, not only for me, but for the entire student body.
Thank you. Any other speakers? Lisa?
All right. Okay, good evening. Lisa Peterson, 2nd grade teacher. I would like to take a minute and share my thoughts, which are also shared with other primary teachers, on Schoology, the program we currently have. First of all, I really appreciate Schoology for middle school and high school. Gavin and Cooper, my 2 older children, use it, and we're able to see their grades and assignments on it as well. It's very fitting for that age group. I also know that teachers in grades 3 through 5 use it and have found it beneficial with their student population. My struggle is it doesn't fit the needs of our primary students. We don't send iPads home with our students for 1,000 different reasons. The students need to practice their fine motor skills on paper, not always on a device. They have many other meaningful opportunities throughout their day to use their iPads. 2 of my colleagues have tried using tests on Schoology with our 2nd graders and have both agreed that it is not worth it. Last year I tried sharing photos with parents on Schoology. I already had a system in place, so it really didn't make a huge impact. It just became one more thing on my plate. We have been told to put our peak of the week on there, and that is great, but only if our parents actually go to it. As a parent of an elementary student, the peak of the week is sent home each week via email. I print it off and put it on the bulletin board in my kitchen, and it's easy, and I know I'm not alone in this as a parent of an elementary student. We want what is easy, not another site that we need to go searching for. Again, the information between middle school, high school, and even upper elementary is very different than what it is for our primary students. That makes Schoology appropriate for them, not for us. Many of us have voiced our concerns with Mrs. Shapee and Mrs. Geese. They have been wonderful in listening to our thoughts and our ideas of programs that would be more fitting for our age group. We have shared our thoughts with the tech department, and unfortunately we feel we have not been heard. I feel like sharing this with the board may help to make an impact. As we look at making reductions, Schoology is a per-student expense. For the past 2 years, we have been paying for a program that we have not wanted, spending roughly $2,640 on it. I hope you understand this is not teachers not wanting to learn or use new technology. This is us as professionals using what is best and doing what is best for our age group and for our parent population. In my mind, if we are looking at saving our district some money, this is a great place to start. Thank you.
Thank you.
Classes was that K through 2, second grade?
K through K1 and 2.
Okay, next. Ma'am, middle of the room.
Hi, I'm Heidi Thurmond. I am the cheerleading coach here at Gannon. This is my 9th year of coaching the program, and we were told that cheerleading may be on the chopping block as well. A little bit background about cheerleading is that we do fluctuate anywhere between 11 to 14 girls per year. We have always raised our own money. We've had no school funding for uniforms or warm-ups. Our uniforms are now 9 years old, and we just got a generous donation from Gemini this year for $1,000 for new uniforms, which we're planning on ordering this coming fall. Every year we have our elementary cheer camp that raises about $800 for our cheer program, and there's anywhere from 55 to 80 elementary girls that take part in that. We have very little accidents. We had one this year that she tripped over a string at the football field. We also had, in the past, had special education students be part of our cheer program, something that we'd like to keep going with them. Gives them an area that they can put their creativity and being involved in things. Bringing the crowd, the cheerleaders bring the crowd together at the games. Football would not be the same without cheerleading or with the pep band. Those two go hand in hand. And the schools that I have talked to that have gotten rid of cheer, when we have talked to them at football games we've gone to, they said, "Oh, your girls are so great. We really miss having that here at our school." So if we lose that, I'm afraid it's something that we won't get back because those other schools did not. And I just like to say that those girls, a lot of them, this is the only thing that they do. So I just really urge you to keep it. Thank you.
Thank you. Others? Sir?
Yeah, Jack Schlichting, the second one on debate, so you can mark that one off. First off, I acknowledge a very tough decision. I guess it's like pushing $300,000 you guys got to cut. I'm not envious of that, so I know everything has to be evaluated. I would just want to speak up for debate and let you know a couple of facts that maybe you're not aware of. Starting with, we got a bad start this last year. I volunteered to coach, but we kind of wanted to try to get a new employee to take it as a deal. And well, it was the end of September when I found out that no one stepped up to the plate. I had some commitments. We really didn't get going until the second debate topic, so we missed one whole month. Goal was 10. We got 7 to pay, 5 to play. 2 kids paid but never really showed, so we said thank you. And so we didn't hit our goal. I acknowledge that. But I would strongly encourage you to give it some serious reconsideration. And Mr. Vandy kind of is promoting, and I've agreed with him, to move towards another form of debate. It'd be at the same time, and it's called Congress. It would reduce our coach obligation. It would allow the kids that are in soccer to participate maybe earlier if they're not there for a Saturday. If you do the debate we're doing, you commit to a topic, you need to commit for the month, because if you do all that work and you miss 3 of the events, you're not going to do the work hard, and you get better as it goes on. Whereas Congress, every week it's a new set of deals that you're debating. It's like a bill, and it's much more applicable to if in 20 years they're a school board member, that they're doing that type of discussion rather than the debate that we've been doing, the public forum. So I just, 8,000, I know you've got to make cuts. I know it's a tough decision, but I just wanted to make sure you're aware of some things on it. I think we will pick up numbers because the speech department is kind of looking at this. I mean, it's not the reason to do it, but it is kind of a farm program for them. A lot of the events can do this and benefit and then go into speech. But I know it's a tough decision, but I just wanted you to have the facts.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Young lady?
Hi, I'm Samantha Hammond with the Cannon Falls Theater Department, and I'd like to speak on their behalf. And I understand that there's been some ideas of different changes going on with whether or not we're having the musical every year. And I'd just like to note that a lot of us are really, really passionate about the performing arts. And when I first came to to the high school part in 6th grade, I was so excited to sign up for the theater stuff. I had already done Prairie Fire, and I was thrilled. I could go on stage, I could go have fun, go with all the big kids, and it was the first time that I had interacted with older kids and younger kids. We have ages ranging from 6th to 12th grade. And it was so cool that the seniors and the juniors and everyone was so willing to help us out, even though I was this puny little 6th grader who didn't really know how to read a script as well and had never really done much on my own. But I learned how to work with kids who are older and younger and with different experience levels. Some kids had never done Prairie Fire. Some kids had already done it for 6 years. So it was just a whole range of experiences and a whole range of opportunities. And we also included other art forms. We had the band come in and help us with the pep band part, and they would provide our music for us. So working with those kids, we worked with some of the choir staff and Miss Frankie, who taught us how to sing and perform on stage, because for a musical, it requires a lot of effort, not just the acting part, but building the set and learning to sing and dance and be a character while keeping all that in mind. And also, I really like how we had the musical, the one act, in the spring play. And I am aware that cuts do need to be made, and we thought that a possibility could be cutting the one act instead, seeing how we have speech as a possibility for our performing arts output, I guess you could say. We're just really passionate about what we do, and we have a great time out there. And I mean, I know it seems like we're stressed a lot, but in reality, we're having a blast. It's it is you sit there backstage and you're like, I don't know what I'm doing, and then you go out there and then I don't know. It's a strange feeling. The lights are shining, the whole area. There's this ambiance that you feel, and you're just involved with the stage. And I don't know. I think it'd be upsetting to see opportunities like that taken away. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Yes.
My name is Lisa O'Brien. I'm a current kindergarten teacher. I'm speaking on behalf of our first grade teachers and our students that are moving into first grade next year. This year we have 16 to 17 students divided into 4 sections of kindergarten. We have very high needs academically and behaviorally, both identified and unidentified in all of our classes. The kindergarten teachers have already had discussion on how to place these children next year, and it's a struggle with 4 sections, let alone a possibility of 3. We're concerned that in an age of early intervention and identification, there will be students who fall through the cracks. Students who don't get the individual attention they deserve and need at this young age, and students who don't get the adequate extension and enrichment. Our first grade teachers are very committed and passionate about their students. They often spend the time well beyond contract hours to provide quality instruction to all of our students. And I understand there needs to be district reductions, but feel we should pride ourselves on classroom size in this district so we can better meet the needs of all of our students. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes.
Well, I'd just like to speak to what Lisa had said, and Melissa Beaver, first grade teacher. And, if we're touting our district as a great district to come to, and we're looking at those numbers pulling from other school districts, or hoping that we have more open enrollment numbers, I think looking at the class size is a really big thing for people when they're looking around at schools to see, Cannon Falls has
22 or 23 kids in a class, whereas Randolph maybe has 20 kids. You know, that to me is a pretty striking difference when people are looking around. The other thing is that if we have, and I don't know how the numbers shook out for kindergarten roundup today, but if we have 4 sections of kindergarten next year, what will happen when they come to first grade? Are we going to divide them into 3 sections again, or are we going to have to rehire another first grade teacher? To me, it doesn't make sense to get rid of a teacher and then have to rehire a teacher. It seems like kind of a Band-Aid fix to get rid of a teacher for a year when you're going to end up having to hire a teacher back again if we go to 4 sections again. And then when this kindergarten class from first grade moves to second grade and the numbers are still low, are you going to have to cut a second grade teacher? Are you going to have to cut a third grade teacher as they go throughout the years? Those are just some of the logistics that we think about, you know, that maybe you guys haven't considered. So obviously we know you have some tough decisions to make, but please consider keeping those students' needs in mind.
Thank you. Anyone else?
There's people in the back. Did you guys in the back there want to say anything?
I'm just here for moral support for debate.
Great to know. Thank you, Mr. Schlichting.
Okay. Thank you for your input. Thank you for your passion. We understand. Okay, moving on, consideration to approve the finance report. That must be you.
Yes, Josh isn't here tonight. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on it. There's nothing out of the ordinary. I certainly would take any questions that you have. The cash flow worksheet is up on the top and on the screen. There is nothing to even necessarily point out. It's payroll and the usuals. There isn't even anything highlighted on it that would be out of the norm. So if you have any specific questions, I would take those. We are going to get into some revised budget things later that has a little more detail, but the finance report tonight is standard, obviously payroll, some taxes, payroll taxes and things like that.
So all the money's rolled over now to Merchants Bank?
That's correct. Good question. Mm-hmm.
Say that again, Jack.
All the money's rolled over.
Our new bank is Merchants Bank.
Rotation, okay. Any questions on finance? Look for a motion to approve when
I'll
you're
make
ready.
a motion.
I'll second.
Motion by Katie, seconded by Kurt. Other discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Consent agenda. Items under the consent agenda are considered routine and can be enacted under one motion. In the event a board member wants to talk about any specific items, it can be removed from the agenda for separate action.
I guess I've made a practice of this, and if you don't want me to do this, I don't have to, but I really like pointing out who gives us donations. I think it's important, and I know the Beacon reports on it when we pull it off specifically. So this month, I just really want to point out the 6th grade Girl Scouts did a nice job of raising some money, and it's going to go towards a robot. Jamie Miller, I believe, was in the room. She was a part of that. Gemini again, and then Merchants Bank. So I just really want to, the rest of them are for We the People, but certainly want to point out everyone that has donated something. In a time of cuts and needs, it's really remarkable that this community continues to give us things that maybe aren't in the budget, but continue to give us some pretty wonderful things. So just want to point that out.
I have a question on finance. I'm sorry, the monthly bills.
You bet. I'm ready.
First ask Kurt.
Yeah.
Treasurer.
Oh.
Just teasing.
50798. What is Moving Minds?
The Cannon Falls Ed Foundation did a nice donation as far as flexible seating, and that's part of that program. You'll see a lot more of that. Some of the elementary teachers that are in the room are experiencing that in their classrooms right now. They've actually done some fundraising down at their level too. So you'll see more of that flexible seating coming in.
So like that's where we toured this fall.
It's a little bit different. It's a little more elementary in nature, but we could take a tour down there and see it sometime. But they raised some money, and then Ed Foundation did some matching. So none of that is actually coming out of your budget, but it needs to be accounted for this way.
Yeah, when we did we did that tour in the elementary school. We saw the flexible
Oh, you
seating.
guys did walk down that way. Yes.
You would have seen it before
our stuff that is.
Yeah, this is new, but it's really
Yes,
neat.
but you got an idea of what it was.
Right.
Okay.
Anything else?
How about 50769, E2 Electrical Services?
That would be Dave. And we have had some just small electrical things that he's called E2 in for. Dave's here. if you want.
I'm here.
Oh, okay. In general, for a general question, Dave, do we have itemizations for these guys coming in for electrical? It's like, do they itemize?
Every bill has
all they do?
itemization with everything that they do.
They
Yes.
do, okay.
Yep.
Sounds good.
He approves it, and then I approve it as well, so it's double approved, and it's
Yep.
always very itemized. Dave doesn't
Very
even let it
detailed.
get through if it's not. He sends it back if it doesn't have
Okay.
a list on it.
Thank you.
Anyone else?
I'll make a motion to approve.
Motion by Jerry to approve. Second?
One second.
Second by Katie. Further discussion? All in favor of approval, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. You know, Grant, we're gonna call you old business. This isn't a committee report, but we need to hear what's going on.
Sounds good. Well, I thought it would be better than, since Math League was late last time, so I thought I'd catch you up. So, with it, wrestling, we both have Cooper Peterson and Hayden going on to state, so that's exciting. For basketball, the girls' season is over, but the boys will hear on Thursday how they do if they're going to go on playoffs. Speech, we have a St. Anthony tournament, and we're about halfway through the speech season, so now we're kind of ramping up towards subsections. We the People, as we saw, is starting to be getting donations, and we're starting to sell our cutout, steel cutouts, which Katie saw and is kind of interested in. So we can have a look at that afterwards if you'd like. And then NHS is starting to do the blood drive, which will be in 2 Wednesdays, not this Wednesday, but the next. Student Council is going to be selling some Rafiki bracelets during lunch. Robotics, as we've kind of been talking about, our competition is March 10th in Duluth. So we'll be going up there and see how it does. We've already done a demonstration for the Girl Scouts, and we'll be doing one for the elementary tomorrow, I believe. So that'll be fun. And then I just thought I'd give an update on some seniors in the military. So I would like to recognize Brendan Klitsky. He is now a private first class, so he's an E3, so that's really cool seeing him going in the National Guard. And also Jackson Mackey is actually taking his ASVAB today and is getting sworn in tomorrow. So I'd just like to say it's really cool in Cannon Falls that we have guys interested in that. And then Grace Hall is working on her Gold Award, which is kind of the equivalent of an Eagle Scout, so that's neat to see. And so she's doing a wellness camp for elementary kids at St. Anne's Scars, teaching them healthy living and healthy eating. And then we just had FFA week and honoring FFA, and then spring sports are starting to ramp up in 2 weeks. So got a lot of old business.
Can I add one thing that Grant chose not to add on there?
Sure.
Grant was accepted into the Air Force Academy last week.
Yes. Wow.
He made me cry, though. I didn't like that.
Yeah.
It's my own child.
Yes.
It's pretty exciting.
Congrats to you.
Thank you very much.
Next page, new business. Consideration to approve the 17-19 Teachers Master Agreement. Jerry's the chief negotiator on this, so I would like to have him make some comments first.
As all of us know, it took a little while to sign this contract, but in the beginning it was good. The language items were good. Some items that we discussed were the non-monetary items, which was unrequested leave of absence. This is for all the teachers that we agreed upon. Sick leave bank, which I think everybody thinks is a good idea. Then we had some appointment language, and then we had vacancies and postings, how the process is going to go that way. And then monetarily, personal day carryovers, so they'll be able to carry over 2 days, correct? So technically, if they kept 3, they could carry over 2, so they technically have 5 days off in consecutive the following year. Then we made some adjustment with the unused sick leave in the language as well. So as far as language items and monetary items, that's how it was.
Kurt, you're also a negotiator, I being the third one, I guess.
Yeah, negotiators did their job. Some hours went into it. In the end, what it ultimately came down to is this budget. There's a budget out there that the district has established. We had a committee for the finance committee deciding what we wanted for in the general fund, and so that played a factor as well. But what you do, you look at, certainly you want to pay the teachers what they're worth, and sometimes you can't meet those demands all the time based on the size of your school. We have to look at our tax base, you have to look at industry. So though not popular, mediation does happen. It's more common than you think, so we did go to mediation. And eventually we came to an agreement that we would go in the next 2 years, an increase of 2.7% increase the first year, and then an increase of 2.20% the next year. What it comes out to when you report it to the MSBA, that's a 5.014% over 2 years. And that 5.014, that doesn't necessarily add up to what I just gave you for the 2722 because it has to factor into your insurances, who's taking insurance, medical insurance, that sort of thing. So when you report to the MSBA, it's 5.014. So tonight we're looking at an agreement by the board for ratification of the teacher's contract. Any questions?
Teachers ratified it already.
Yeah, I'm sorry,
Voted on it.
a vote for that, I should say.
Any questions?
Jerry, you had the sick language. What was the language that was changed on that? Is it similar
That
to
was
the
many meetings ago.
That was back in August.
It does allow them, upon the district, to get paid $25 for a day that's left in their account. So I think the $25 is what you're referencing.
Okay.
Isn't that correct? Why is everyone looking at me funny? I'll look it up.
One-fourth of the days.
Okay. Is that where I'm getting 25%, $25? I can look it up. Okay. It has been since August.
$25 each.
Right.
Thank you.
Thank you for that, Mr. Swanson.
So it has been a process, but are both of you recommending
Yes.
contract ratification? Okay. As am I. So, again, it was a long process, and sometimes it isn't always easy. But in the end, a third party came in to assist us on that, and congratulations to both sides for the hard work you put in, because it was very, very difficult. But in the end, both sides have approved it, we hope. So, any other discussion? I would look for a motion to approve the teacher's master agreement.
I'll make the motion.
Motion by Brenda,
I'll say.
second by Kurt. Other discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Consideration to approve the fiscal year 18 revised budget.
Okay, let me see if this will come up on here. It should. You have it in your packet as well if you want to look at page 11. That's where everything is at in there. Obviously, the last time we did the budget, it was last May. Actually, May 22nd to be exact. That's a little bigger. Not anything too alarming on here. Very, very small changes. Josh tweaked the last few little things today. Up at the top, you'll have the revised portion of things. The second item on the list is where you were back in last May. As you can see, we're pretty close to where we want. General fund, we're to the positive of $10,000. That was changed a little bit in tech infrastructure, formula updates, and projection models from MDE. Food service, we were anticipating being negative $5,000. It looks like we're going to be around negative $4,000. The reason why I point that out is we'll need to look at lunch prices again. We don't want to be in the hole in lunch services. So we'll definitely want to look at that. Community Ed, Jake and his crew continue to do a really, really nice job. They're plus $10,000. Very appreciative for all the hard work he does trying to get a lot of really great programming through our community eds. We're thankful for that. Construction debt service gets a little more complicated. Obviously, we just had a project come through. What you're seeing in there is certainly not $6 million. It's the refunding and the expenditures of the you sold some bonds, the 2007A bonds, if you remember that correctly. So that is calculated in there as well. And then the OPEB trust and debt service, again, we're getting down there. We are going to be talking about that, and I know it's one of my goals for this year. Look at doing that in May, but we will look at levying some of those OPEB benefits again, because we're getting down to right around $100,000, which gives us about a two-year balance. And we've talked about this. This isn't new news to you, but we're going to want to look at that. So very small tweaking in here, but it's important that we continue to show you the revised budget. If you have any specific questions, I can get into it. Josh has got a couple notes that he wanted me to note here, especially the increase in electricity. I don't know if you're aware of it, but we are using far less kilowatts than we've ever used. The district is really doing well. The problem is every kilowatt is costing us about double. Is that a fair statement, Dave?
Exactly.
And so even though we're using half as much, it's costing us twice as much. And so you're seeing that in your home prices. We're seeing it obviously for our school. We're doing as much as we can to turn off lights and encourage those things. The custodians are doing what they can in that part too. So if you have any questions on the revised budget, I can get into it. Remember, you will see this again in June or end of May. We'll revise this one last time to make sure we're in line. We are keeping our eyes on food service. We never want to be negative like that, and we'll do our best. Wendy does a great job, but we just may need to look at prices and things like that. Anything else? I'll go ahead and try to answer. Otherwise,
If not, we look for a motion to approve the revised budget.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Motion by Jerry. Second?
A second.
Second by Katie. Other discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Item 3, consideration to approve the non-renewal of a community expert position and letter of appointment from 10/2 to 6/4/18.
Okay, this gets a little confusing. As you're aware, the whole licensing system for all teachers has gotten a little complicated. This year, we were fortunate enough to have someone student teaching. We were able to put her on a community expert, if you remember that, Maddie Sunheim. We really like what she's doing, but you must non-renew letters of appointment. She can't automatically be put into a position. We have to post the position. You have to try to find a licensed special ed teacher. If you can't do that, we'll go through this process again. She will be licensed at the end of this year. She'll be finishing up her student teaching. I think this was a great arrangement for her and us, plus we got to see her skill set, and we're very pleased with that. Nonetheless, the next two items you see are just procedural. Maddie is well aware that this is on the agenda for tonight. The reason why we're moving with it so quickly is we do want to get out there and see what the pool is and see what we've got for candidates. So I would strongly recommend non-renewing her so that we can move forward with a contract.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what that is all about.
Makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
Motion?
I'll make a motion.
Brenda made the motion. Second?
I'll second.
Seconded by Kurt. Other discussion? All in favor of the non-renewal, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. And in conjunction with that, consideration to post and hire one special ed teacher for the 18-19 school year. Just an extension of what we just talked to. We've got
It
to go
is.
through
The difference is
procedure.
with this new person, or whoever ends up getting this position ends up being on the teacher contract. It is a little bit different,
Mhm.
so keep that in mind.
And is it just for 1 year then?
Well, everyone, she would have to start the tenure process,
Okay.
and so the principals and Sharon would go through that process. She would, I believe, start over with 3 years. Her year as a community expert does not count, and so that whole process starts. She's a brand new teacher.
I didn't know because it was 18, 19 years, if it was just a 1 year position where I hired her, if this is a continuous.
It would be continuous with the contract because that's the end of that teacher until the next contract. I don't see any end. We always post them that way.
Okay,
Yeah.
been a while.
Yeah, and it gives us the right at the end of the year to non-renew if we wanted to, but she's a non-tenured teacher anyway.
Okay. I'll make a motion.
Motion by Rob. Second?
I'll second.
Seconded by Jerry. Other discussion? All in favor of the post and hire, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Carried. Consideration to approve the 17-18 spring assistant coaches. I believe that's on page 12 of your packet. We have a lot of volunteers.
Yeah.
In this group alone, we have Jack lifting as a trap shooting volunteer. Thank you for your time. And Swan as an assistant golf person volunteer. Thank you for doing that.
And keep in mind, the reason why we do put volunteers on here, they have to pass the same background checks and all those things. It's really important that they understand they have to follow the rules, right, Jack?
Yep.
And so the reason why you're seeing them, we don't just let anyone volunteer. It's certainly a process, and we do our best to keep our kids safe and follow that procedure. So that's why you're seeing it on the agenda, just as a reminder.
As you can see, we're looking for a couple junior high softball coaches, if anybody has
Nice plug.
any ideas.
I knew you were going to do that. I knew you were going to do
I
that.
should have asked you for your input. Once you're ready, once you've looked this over, I look for a motion to approve.
I'll make a motion.
Motion by Kurt.
I'll
Second. Rob?
Yeah.
Thank you. Other discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That is carried. Consideration to approve a family medical leave act leave.
Right. This one is for Renee Otto. I would recommend approving this. She's got some things in her family that she wants to take care of, and I think it's really important, family first, and so I would recommend approving this leave.
I'll make a motion.
Motion by Jerry, seconded by Brenda. Okay. Other discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Carried. Update on the Cannon Falls Street Improvement Project and cost impact to us.
Okay, this is just kind of a summary. I'm not going to take a lot of time to do this. I went to the last city council meeting. I'll continue to go to those. Our first assessment, we were a little nervous, was going to be around $150,000 because if you live in the area or have had your streets done, you understand that it's your front, your home front. And because they're going around our parking lot down Minnesota Street and then, what's that first street there? I don't even remember.
Coleman.
Okay. It could be assessed as 6 fronts, but it's not. We're going to go with 5, and each front is around $7,900. So it is going to cost the district close to $37,000, but much better than the $150,000 that we were originally thinking it was going to be. So I'll keep working with Greg Anderson. He's the architect on the program. We are also looking at closing off Minnesota Street, working with the emergency crews on that just to make sure we could do a turnaround and things like that. My hope is that Tim can make his building even safer on that end by not having all that traffic that goes through there. We've tried signs. He puts it on every single newsletter where we want kids picked up, and it's just not working. And so a kind of a dead end there would not only help those poor residents across Minnesota Street so that that traffic isn't always there, we think it would be safer for kids and pedestrians to cross. It also, believe it or not, would give us a lot more parking spaces. Because if you close that road off, Minnesota could have some diagonal painted lines on there, giving us close to 30, 40 more slots along there. And obviously on nights like this, we need more parking. So kind of excited about that, but that's the update. I don't have anything final. We don't have that number in our hands, but I was glad to see that number came down. It is an unbudgeted item because we weren't aware this was even going to happen. We found out when all the residents found out. So Dave and I got the word the same time everyone on the street got the word. So we'll continue to work with it, and I'll keep you updated.
I'm sorry, how much did it cost before we switched it to 5 slots instead of 6? Did you say
Well,
150,000?
we didn't know because the assessment comes out and you get this main assessment. We thought it was going to be right around
All of
100.
a sudden said 6
Right,
slots.
we were calculating a whole block versus just the fronts.
Yeah.
And so it's down around $3,700 is the assessed, or $37,000 is the assessed amount. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So when a homeowner gets assessed, they can amortize this over an extended period of time. With the $40 bump that we're not used to seeing, or that comes as a surprise, are we going to have the same opportunity as a standard homeowner?
That's a great question. We do have the same possibilities. We can do it out for 15 years if we want. The downfall to that is you're paying 5 to 6%. So we'll need to sit down with the finance committee and see if we want to do a 5-year. You know, like when you're buying a vehicle, what do you want that tax impact to be? So, yeah, you can go up to 15 years. But a lot of details need to come out before that. This is the first meeting City Council has had. I will continue to attend every Public Works and City Council until this is done. So I'll keep you as updated as I can.
Okay. Anything else? Okay, we're moving on. The 17-18 mid-year superintendent review.
Lori makes us do this.
Well,
This is fruitful.
this is a requirement, and we've made it much more concise from about the 15
Right.
reviews that we've done. It seemed like it's every month we have something going on a recommendation of the MSBA, and now we've contracted it to maybe 3 or 4 a year.
Right.
Let's hope.
Well, we've got two of my main goals, OPEB being one of them, that has had a lot of progress. The superintendent will guide Cannon Falls Board and negotiators through the steps and processes for OPEB. The first one was we will guide through negotiations, and that was something that both sides were able to agree on, is that sunset clause. We can't move forward with a levy without that sunset clause present. And what that means is no teacher hired after a certain date, can't remember what that is now either, it would be July 1 of last year. Once that sunset clause is in there, and it will be in the ratified contract, we can now move forward and levy for that OPEB that we had talked about. So actually that goal would be completed because it has happened and you voted on that tonight. Preparing for a possible levy and communicate with the board on that process. We're reviewing that. Obviously we'll talk to finance first. We'll get all of that lined up. That may not completely happen by the end of this evaluation period, but certainly we're in a good place, and I feel like I'm keeping you up to date on that. Goal number 3 is creating documents on the rental policies and fundraisers. This has been a big item for this board in general. I think we've made a ton of progress on it. You haven't necessarily voted on those procedures yet, but I think we continue to talk about both the rental procedures and the fundraising. The fundraising, Jake and I have both, there's some highlighted things on here. We've got a document that's going. We're kind of working off of this, and we're kind of, if you want to say, piloting it out, trying it out, seeing what works and what doesn't work. And then you'll see this at the end of the year as a product. The rental procedures, actually Jerry has been quite instrumental in helping us find other schools and looking at some of those and finding out how under the dollar amount we are, but yet not going so high that people can't afford to have something here. So we're still working on that, but that is a goal for the end of the year. So we will mark that as reviewing because we're continuing to work on it. Both Jake has been instrumental in this one. He's done a really, really nice job. The rentals come through very clear now. His itemized bills are phenomenal. It used to be, yeah, you owe us $50 to rent this. It's now itemized. There's how much custodian time was on there. It's really, really well done, and all of that credit goes to Jake. I deserve none of that, but I think it's been kind of a branch off of this goal because I'm driving him crazy, bugging him with it now. So. Personal development. This one I'm actually really mad at Bob for. Actually really mad. Because he said, you need to find a woman's leadership group, and you need to go try to be the best leader that you can be. And so I signed up for this thing called Ruth's Table. It's considered in the Mesa world kind of one of the really groups for women, and I reached out about it, and now I'm the keynote speaker. I was meant to be the attendee, so this is Bob's fault. But I think we can, after March 7th, probably mark that as completed too. So. And then the other one is my certification, my national certification. That happened in February. I've also done my State of the School address at the Chamber, was well attended. I did a TED Talk and my capstone on Cannon Falls, so those are completed as well. So we're making progress. I still have a lot of work to do, but it's only mid-year, so if you have any questions, the Chamber here I have a note how it laid out. Some other things, the youth skills groups that we're doing. I've got lots of examples of what I've been doing. You'll see all this in portfolio format at the end of the year on my end of the year evaluation. So, if you have any questions, otherwise, I don't think we should waste much more time on this. I don't.
You say that time.
I know, I don't like it.
Again, there's an obligation for this to be done. We haven't always done it, especially in previous tenures of superintendents, but it's a good thing because if we just go day to day or year to year, we don't come to any conclusions about your job performance. And it has been good. You've gotten great reviews in the past, so just reinforcing that.
Thank you, Beth. You're welcome, Brenda.
Next item. I'm guessing it's what you're here for. This is a Q&A session for possible reductions. And let me reinforce that this is a board procedure, so we won't be taking any comments. The comments that you've given us previously will have to be sufficient for this evening. There will be subsequent conversations where you can be included in on this, but for now, we've got to keep it to the board. For many of us, Kurt and I have seen this before being on the finance committee, but for just about everyone else, this is their first look at this. So it needs to be kept here, and the only questions that we'll ask from any of the audience members will be our professional admin team, who can lend us some information if needed. As we begin this, it's usually we're tasked with keeping our fund balance in and about 12 to 14%. That's utopia. And as school districts have become more self-funded, more referendums run, that number has dwindled down quite a bit. Our fund balance now is approximately 7%. Now, it's less than half, but let's not be alarmed with this because it's become the new norm. And another thing that we can't escape is that over the last 2 years, my granddaughter's kindergarten class and the subsequent kindergarten class, we will have anywhere from 40 to 50 less children than we originally banked on. Now, we didn't make any changes last year under the thought that it was a one-time blip on the screen and let's suffer through it. And but it hasn't been the case. And at $9,000 plus per student times 45 students, you can see the dilemma we're in. And so it's been on our radar screen for quite some time, and we've asked the finance committee and the admin to come up with some suggestions. And it's very understandable that each and every one of you has things that are near and dear to you. Young lady with the passion for music, you moved me. But the practicality of things is what we have to look at as a board. And sometimes somebody's project, somebody's activity may have to move along to the side as it's been done in the past. We removed a whole fax program a number of years ago when we had issues and dwindling influence as such. So to some degree, this is our obligation to come up with that $400,000 or less so our fund balance doesn't dwindle to the point where others step in and make decisions for us financially, which can happen, which nearly happened back in the early 90s when we went to statutory operating debt, which is the nice term for bankruptcy. We were on the cusp of that. That means we were in that 3% range. What we don't want to do is have others make decisions about how it affects Cannon Falls. We feel like it's our job. So as we get into this discussion, please know that it's nothing that we look forward to. Our plans haven't changed. We've always hung our hats on low class sizes, and we will continue to do the best job we possibly can with all of our activities and all of our educational endeavors. So having said that, I'm passing it on.
Okay. What I was thinking is we'll do what we've done in the past, is just go down the list and then questions, or maybe we do it by section. Which would you prefer? I mean, you're not making any decisions tonight. Tonight's just a good conversation kind of thing. Just go down the list. Okay, we'll start with 10% of the overall tech budget. We did increase that budget when we needed to do some infrastructure type things. I very much heard what was talked about tonight, and I thought Lisa hit it on the head. I just found out about that yesterday, moved on it quite quickly, or 2 days ago, whatever it was. I can guarantee you that that'll be a part of this, because that's ridiculous to have anything that isn't being used like that. I'm sorry that you hit that roadblock, and we'll make sure that that is taken care of. But $30,000 is 10% of the budget, and I think that we need to definitely look at this area. It's one of our strongest areas, but because we built in some infrastructure things, I certainly think that we can make this happen. Transportation, and Rob was at that meeting. It's gotten much better. We know where every single screw is on every single vehicle. We now have vehicles listed and every item, whether it's windshield wiper fluid or whatever, going into each vehicle, we've got a strong handle on our supply list. With that, we were going to push off purchasing a bus. We do have some vans, believe it or not. Schools can only use their vans for 12 years, and then you can't use them anymore. And it's frustrating and it's aggravating because a 12-year-old van is okay, but we have to purchase those, but we can push the bus off. And so what we're looking at doing is buying perhaps a used bus out of the supply budget. This is down to the dollar. They won't get another penny more because they feel that they can do this. So again, I feel like this one is one that can be done. It is highlighted peach, and the reason for that is I need you to be aware those are what we call a soft cut or a temporary cut. It can't be done long term. Okay, so anytime you see the color code, just know that this is a great solution, but not something long term. Telecommunication, I've actually gotten a lot of calls from board members on this item. I prefer to pay for my cell phone so that I can use it for personal use and for work. That's a decision I've made. Legal counsel suggests you do that if you're going to be using it for personal. We do have several other staff members that are on school phones. There's a lot of details going on. A great example the other day is I was walking down the hallway with Mr. Hodges, and we went into a lockdown and he did it from his phone. And I was standing right next to him when he did it. Well, if he doesn't have that school phone, is that going to happen? I called Dave at 4 a.m. There's snow coming, are you coming? Jake, probably my number one phone call, I call him day in, day out about something that's happening at the school. So keep in mind that even though I've made that choice, the admin team, there's a lot of, and we can talk about that in more detail, but that's what telecommunication is. No new devices in K1. We've worked through this with the tech committee as well. We know that our K1 teachers are doing amazing things with technology, but they can do those amazing things by having iPads and things on carts and not sending them home. We don't see a need to replace those right now, and there's some savings to that. You would think it's more, but you don't get much for a used device. The ones that are still working, they're not making minis, iPad minis anymore, those type of things. So the technology people don't agree with this cut, but we feel that it's a good thing for kids, and I guess I would rather cut something like this than other things. Moving the assistant principal to dean of students. This is what we attempted to do last year. Ms. Fields isn't here, but she would tell you that when Mr. Bell resigned on August 28th, it was very late in the game. We kind of just had to roll with the situation. We went without one for a while. That didn't work. We need someone to be licensed. We know that for sure, so that they can help both of our principals with suspensions, expulsions, all those things. I can do that as well because I have that license, but you can't count on that always being the situation. We believe this is what we were trying to do last year, but couldn't do it, so we had to hire an assistant principal with full benefits on those type of things. By moving to dean of students, they moved to the teacher contract, and you can save around $32,000. We feel that this is doable. It's not the best thing in the world, but I think our administrative team can certainly handle it with our experience. Curriculum. This is a hard one to do. Wasn't on the original list at all. Because of the tech reductions, we didn't think curriculum, but after our last meeting, we feel that we could hold off on the K-5 math curriculum. Being math is math, and we feel like with the technology adds that we can do that. The overall program is coming in at around $80,000, so we would need to save up anyway, and so we would like to make that. Again, highlighted peach because it's a temporary soft cut. Organizational memberships, I've just gone through, and anything we don't use enough of is gone. There's just so many organizations that the board, that anyone can belong to, and I know it's a small cut, but we found some. Classroom furniture rotation, we were getting into a nice rotation of buying new classroom sets. If you look back, we haven't done that for quite some time. There's desks with sharp edges and those types of things. We've gotten rid of those types of things. The Ed Foundation has stepped up. Our elementary has done a lot of fundraising and those type of things, and we feel like we can do it in 1 year. Again, highlighted peach because we know we can do it, but we do need to make sure that our learning spaces are conducive to what they're doing in the classrooms and learning. So that is on the list as well. Debate, which we've gotten into, I can give you exact numbers. You have this sheet in front of you, the breakdown of why it costs what it costs. Keep in mind that we never know what our numbers are going to be. I've got 7 on here. We don't know. We hope it's 10. 12 is kind of the magic number, just like a class. If we have 12, we know that we can cover that. There is, and I have this starred on there, an activity fee, and I think that's important for you to remember that these kids are paying. If they go out for soccer, you mentioned that, and they go out for debate, they pay for both. Now they might hit their family max because these are usually really active kids, but this is a hard one for me too, because I think it is a unique skill set. I will defend Jack in what he said earlier. They are looking at some creative things on how we could do this through this Congress program. So keep that in mind, that there are some things we're looking into. Cheerleading is on here based off the old numbers. I do have a list that I can share with you as well. 14 girls that have committed to this program, 7 through 12. Coach Zimmerman was nice enough to go out and make sure we got those names ahead of time. They look pretty consistent and something they're going to do. Keep in mind that cheerleaders also do pay an activity fee. Keep in mind, though, that they are not sanctioned through the Minnesota High School League. So if there is a free and reduced situation, or we waive a activity fee, because we want kids to be involved. It should never be about can they pay or not pay. When they're not sanctioned, we don't get any sort of, there's no angel fund or anything for that. We do eat those costs. So the cheerleading on here is just the salary. Every other musical, I agree with Sam, this is pretty cool, and it definitely hits a certain group of kids, so it's hard to hear, but it is by far one of our most expensive programs. And you know that, the kids that are in it know it. It's worth it, but it's expensive. The costs on here from last year, the revenue would include at the door, Jake, help me out.
Registration.
Registration fees, thank you. So they pay too, I should have that on there. They pay an activity fee as well. That's what we're getting in revenue, that's what it costs. You're thinking, like I did, I said, Jake, that can't be right. But there's a musical director, there's accompanists, there's a singing director, the director that runs the play. There's a lot of salaries that go into this. It is not set design. These people bring in logs from home. I don't know where they get these sets, but we're not paying for a lot of the set type things. So the costs really do come from salaries. So whether you have 30 kids in the program or you have 50, it's an expensive program to run. It was just an idea to do it every other year. Maybe that could be a one-act situation instead. Candle Advisor, this is a very new program. There is no activity fee on this because we don't charge elementary kids for robotics or any of those type of things. This has been very good. I can send you the link. They have some stories and things on their, they have an online membership like the Lantern does. This is just more of a last in, first out kind of thing, but we can certainly talk about those things. Dance reflects registration numbers. Don't worry, dance is still big. This is actually the 3rd assistant coach. They understand that the numbers, just when it fluctuates like that, you may or may not need that 3rd coach, and so they were really receptive to that. The next one is a .4 art. This comes from actually registration at the high school. We are short 2 classes in the fall and 3 classes in the spring. So across the board, that's a .4. The difficulty with this position is it impacts the elementary art teacher, who we all know is very, very good. Well, they're all very good. I shouldn't say it that way. They're all extremely good. The other hard part is about the fine arts. Just in general, we see ebb and flows all the time. 3 years ago, I was sitting here and we were talking about band. We are now talking about adding concert band back because we have so many kids involved in band. So the tough thing with the fine arts is it's this ebb and flow. But it would be a reduction, making them .6. Finding it, if the teacher didn't stay, finding a .6 art teacher would be extremely difficult. But I don't think the admin team had a choice. This is based off registration. You can't just have someone not doing something for .4 of their day. And then the last one on here that is, as an elementary teacher, hard for me to do, the grade 1 to 3 sections. You heard some people talking about that tonight, based completely off numbers. This would be a higher back if we got close to your number in your procedural things, and that being 24, 25. But last year we saw an influx. Jennifer, I remember talking to her on the phone, and she's like, "Where are all these kids coming from?" You know, even though we were down all those kindergarten kids, we were getting kids all across the board in the kindergarten, and Tim got them up here as well. So those are the items. We did not reach your goal, but we got as close as we could to that 291. There's items that I know were talked about in the originally. We took this really seriously. I know the administration team, we met 10, 12 times, weeks for sure. Over the last 10 weeks we've been meeting. I've met with the finance committee. I've sent out ideas to the staff. The staff had some really great ideas on revenue, and we can get into that a little bit later. But naming rights seem to be kind of a popular thing. I wish we had a big Target Corporation or KMTEL or something that wanted to take on naming rights. But a lot of really good ideas from the staff as far as revenue sources. So myself and the admin team are ready for questions. Again, none of this is easy for us. None of it. We don't want any of this to happen, and that's why we didn't bring reductions forward last year. We just, this hurts morale, this hurts our community. The number of calls I received over the weekend and today is, and you guys have received, it's a lot. So I'm willing to talk about any of them.
When we talk about making reductions for the reasons that many of the people are here, if they go out themselves and recoup that money, recoup that loss, let's say the musical, is that something that we consider, or are they not allowed to do that? We all get really nervous about fundraisers because we know how often the community gets hit up. And what we don't want to do is create a situation where, sure, go out and sell some pizzas and maybe you can have the musical. We don't want more of that, but at the same time, do we support independent research to make this, or?
Well, that would be a board decision. You've already kind of set parameters as far as fundraising goes. What I have seen some schools do, if you, for example, take the musical and it's $12,000, if you average that out amongst 30 kids, that's around $300, $330 per kid. I have seen some schools take however many kids are in the event, what it costs, and charge it back to the parents to have that program. The downfall of that is I think you get into that equity issue again. Some kids can't pay that. What we want is kids involved. I want them involved in something. And our numbers, even though our enrollment is down, our numbers in activities are better than they've ever been. That's a fair statement.
Very good.
And we're just seeing kids be more and more involved all the time. No one will be turned away, ever, to play an activity here. And that's a positive thing, I think, for our school. The downfall of that is if you start going that way of saying pay to play, gosh, that can get awfully expensive for parents too. And often they don't have one kid. You know, if you've got a kid in the musical, typically they're the qualies and they've got 4 kids in the play. You know, are we going to charge them times 4? That doesn't seem right. So those are options. Your own parameters on fundraising have been set. And I think that's for good reason. We don't want to be selling pizzas on everyone's doorstep all the time. So that would take reverse action on your part if you were to go that route.
But if there are booster clubs or PTOs or ed foundations, those are areas that can be researched by the individual groups. And I guess what I'm driving at is that we would reconsider anything as long as it's not costing.
Sure. And you could even mark that as a soft save. You know, maybe it's 1 year, you figure that out, you know, kind of get us through the hump. That could certainly be looked at too. And, you know, things like cheerleading, when you've got 14 on the list, okay, we've got that commitment, 13, 14, somewhere in there, you know, you're actually covering the cost, you would hope. So, you know, it's those types of things that kind of the unknown. You know, this year, and Jack alluded to it, debate we didn't bring it to you as a reduction. We were just not going to do it because there weren't enough kids. And we have every right to do that. You have a volunteer step forward, kind of like what you're talking about, someone stepping up and doing that. But
anyone else?
I think I mentioned before is a lot of this, there's about 100,000 that's a soft cut. They're not hard cuts, meaning that next year, I think we're going to have to look at that and then some more. I'm just not sure if this is going to be good for meeting our budget going forward. I'm a little nervous about that. Just wondering if there's other things out there that we can look at. And I'm going to go to what is the ability to say first through fifth grade to keep just classroom tablets versus sending them home for first through fifth grade. Is that even an option? I know first, second don't.
You're in the leases, so you can only do 2 years at a time. When that lease dies, that's why we're doing K1.
Yeah.
You would have to make that decision the second year to not renew that lease for 2, 3, that type of thing.
So is that a first through fifth though going forward? Is that a big savings? Not really.
Not really, and especially when we're going to be moving forward to bring your own. A lot of schools are. That's just becoming more commonplace. So.
Yeah.
As these computers go, we've heard her say, oh, we don't like the Lenovo's, we like the Chromebooks, iPads are good for elementary, but not necessarily for the high school. Truth is, I want to bring my Mac where I go. So we're going to be going that direction anywhere where kids are bringing what they want. So I don't think it's what you think it's going to be for savings. Your savings in the area of technology are going to come from big programming type things.
Yeah.
So really, soft freeze says we're going to delay it for a year, but inevitably we'll have to deal with it again.
And I don't like that. I think, we're going to keep chasing it as we go along, and I don't think that's going to be good either. I worry about the OPEB. We have to do something with the OPEB coming up. There's going to be unforeseen costs that we don't know about, and then that just kind of shoots us all up. So.
Well, and again, I couldn't even research that until you approved that contract tonight. Now we know that sunset clause is there, so I can start working with our financial advisors on that. So.
Questions for the activities. So is the only other way that we've seen is, like, for trap shooting, they volunteer. So, like, all the staff, since a lot of these costs come from volunteers. So I'm just wondering, like we've talked about booster, PTO, or trying to distribute the costs. Is there any other ways these activities can try and make up the cash, or is the only other one is
in
volunteer?
TRAP is a good example. You don't pay the $125, you pay what did I pay for Matthew?
$225.
$225. So again, that's a better example of that pay to play.
Yeah.
Whatever the true amount is what we're charging. That's something you can look at, but I do think it discourages kids.
Yeah, correct. But I'm wondering, like, also there's, the staff members can volunteer. So, like, for the musical, there's 5 positions.
Sure.
You could have 4 volunteers. Is there any other way to try and make up for the cost, or is that kind of our only 3 options if we want to try and bring these organizations forward?
Yeah, I can't really think of anything else, Grant.
Yeah, I was
Those would be
just wondering if
the
there's
big ones.
anything
And I think you'd be surprised, well, you saw the list tonight, how many people do volunteer.
Yeah.
I mean, it's amazing to me that the people that are volunteering their time after working all day, or people from the community that come in, and we've just got so many people. And even the people that are getting paid, if you average it out per hour, I mean, it's absolutely ridiculous, the hours they put in. Look at speech alone. Every Saturday, all day, every night after school. I mean,
They're there all the
close.
time.
Yeah.
How about the special program that's been developed over the years? And I can't really mention any right now, I guess, that come to mind in general, but the efficacy of it, some of the special programs that we've developed.
Sure.
You're
referencing like ADSYS and RTI and some of those pull out the instructional coaching type things?
Some of that. Are we creating special programming for maybe people that should maybe come in after school for help versus, okay, well, here's a time for you, we'll pull you aside and we'll do this. Are we creating something that is already there for teachers that are available after school?
I think you're referencing maybe a high school, if Mr. Hodges wanted to answer that. I think the problem you do run into is that, again, in the example of the instructional math coach at the high school, you can pull them out right then and make them work on those skills that they're struggling in. If you tell a high school kid, yeah, come in after school, you just never know if it's going to happen or not.
But are we creating programs for kids that should take that responsibility?
I'm going to turn that one over to Mr. Hodges.
I'm challenging.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm wondering.
And you're just thinking
at one
outside the
time,
box.
kids would say, "Hey, I got to stay after school. I got to get this," and we allowed it for the student to come in after school. The teacher was there. there until 3:30, but we've created programs within our school system now to meet those needs. Correct?
Well, yeah, we've created some of these positions also to address issues that were not being addressed with simply kids coming in before or after school. One thing that I can say about any of the positions, at least in my building, the couple hours that we have for reading support and the math specialist position is, while they may at first glance seem like they're extra added positions, the way we qualify kids for special education now is different than it was 4 or 5 years ago. So 5 years ago, we used the discrepancy model to qualify kids for learning disabilities, and now we use a process called MTSS, which basically means that if we've got a kid who is struggling, we have to provide structured support for those students, and then if they don't respond to those structured supports, then we can look at special education testing. So if those positions go away, that whole model really falls apart, and we really have to restructure things within our system anyway. So I would hate to see any of those academic support positions go, because they are fulfilling some really needed some needs for us, for students. So and yeah, I mean, I wish that I could say that, you know, students and parents had the ability to get kids here before or after school if kids need extra help, but that's not where we live anymore. That's not always possible. We have to try to meet the needs of kids when they're in the building. So.
In some of the other programs, ADSIS and Title, we get funding for that, and that has to be during the school day. So,
and that's why they were on the
services-
list originally.
Yeah.
They just, it didn't make sense to, for $15,000, it just made sense to keep that teacher on there. But I think you're referencing some of the early items that were just
the
listed as
efficacy of it all,
brainstorming
yeah.
ideas.
Okay.
I see that, you know, we got brainstorming session, cabinet meeting, there were some other, I guess, recommendations down lower with math, library, and they didn't come across to the final side. Is that off the table? I'm just curious how the process worked.
It isn't. When the final meeting comes, you know, we do our best to save our teachers. I feel like they're kind of our bread and butter, and they are what schools are all about. And so when it comes down to it, we're trying to find anything other than that. So when you see librarian on there or see math instructional coach, sure, those are positions that, you know, we could be flexible with. But even to put a point for art on there is difficult, because these are staff members. They've often been in our district 20-some years, and to put them on a reduction list just ethically doesn't feel good. And it's more than that. It's about saying teachers are important. So that's why it didn't make it all the way over. We understand that we may have to just work with you on that, but that's why it came down that way.
Well, I remember you were talking, gosh, I guess months ago about right sizing. And I didn't know what that all entailed, and looking at this kind of document.
That'd be like your first grade, for sure, yep.
Okay, that's why I was wondering what we're looking at here.
Yeah, because that one, none of us wanted to put over there either, but it's that 17 versus 22 in a class, you know, but they're right, there's some high needs in that K class too, but that's what it comes down to, is just a staffing type thing. We tried to find anything that wasn't a staffing, but if you don't agree with us, that's okay. You know, that's where our minds go, is keeping staffing, because the minute you reduce that, it seems like the following year, oh my gosh, there's this need. You know, if you look at our librarian, she also runs the yearbook. She also, I mean, you could go down the list, and now you've got 4 other positions you need to fill because you reduced one other one. So the librarian also teaches 2 tech classes to our middle school kids. Well, who's going to do that? Well, after he got registration in, there's no room in your business department to move them over. So these ideas are great on paper, and then when you start really working it through, they just don't work.
But something like that, being around the librarian, she teaches a couple classes. First, how many how many schools still have a full-time librarian? And the second would be, if we don't keep it at 1.0, even if she's teaching 2 classes, would it be a half-time position? I mean, is that something we could look at if we'd ever need to?
You absolutely can, sure. I don't know the answers.
So I don't know what else she does.
Those are the things we
if
have
she
to
does,
research
you
before
know.
the next meeting. And Tim might be able to allude to the actual job description, but I know she teaches 2 classes for sure. I'm glad to hear that you wouldn't cut a 1.0, because that would be very difficult for Mr. Hodges to figure out, but, you know, we could look at the other
Is
things.
that the middle school librarian?
There's just one,
One.
middle school, high school.
I had a couple.
Okay.
I'll start with the easy one first. The candle advisor,
Okay.
they pay there's no cost to it, correct?
There's not, nor is there in the Lantern. The high school newspaper doesn't pay a fee either.
So they're both newspapers,
Mhm.
and this is the elementary, correct?
Correct.
So my question would be, how many newspapers have they put out this year?
Well, it's all online.
Okay.
And there's been some health things with one of the advisors. I don't think there's been as many as they had hoped for.
Just to give some background on it, so for the younger newspapers, unlike the Lantern, which is able to push out 2 articles in each category basically every week with a couple of hiccups here and there, especially for middle school and elementary, it's really trying to teach them and learn to write. So usually only getting, you know, a team of kids, a team of 2 writing an article, will get 1 out in 2 or 3 weeks. So it's a lot slower writing basis. They're more worried about, you know, teaching them how to research, teaching them how to use quotes correctly. But yeah, that's something we have to look at still too. It's just, you know, we're not going to be seeing just, you know, I can give some, you know, analysis that for the torch and for the candle, their articles are very low for it.
We could look at a fee structure, but then you've got robotics and those things. And again, it comes back to, would a kid be in 5th grade robotics if they had to pay a fee? I just don't know if they would.
What does this mean, move to community ed?
It was an idea. I don't know if it's the best idea. I'm just trying to brainstorm here. Jake loves the idea. Anytime you run, especially an elementary type program through community ed, the parents pay whatever fee is listed. So if Ms. Conway wanted to sign up one of her daughters for the candle, she would go into community ed, she would register, and it would be $20. Community ed would get the $6 back. The advisor would get whatever rate of pay they need. It pulls it off Schedule C, and they don't have to go with the stipend amount. It's one option. We do have like 27 kids that are involved with the candle. They don't go consistently. You know, little kids are, oh, I've got Girl Scouts this day, I've got this. You know, they're busy too, but there are 27 kids that go. So it's not that it's not being utilized. It just kind of comes down to, it was one of those last things added. So
How many other elementaries in the area have
I
it?
really don't. I know in the area I couldn't find it. I know there's not any in Minnesota. I think they were going to try to find some outstate, but it's very uncommon.
Yeah. How would that
What's
look?
great about it?
How would that look for a revenue structure also for the Lantern or the torch to move to community and have a $20 fee? Is that an option or not?
Oh,
really?
it sure is. We talked to the advisor a little bit about that. There's good and bad to that as well, you know.
Okay.
So. But you know, we've talked to the advisor a little bit. Jake has been good about answering questions on that. We're trying. We're trying to think of anything we can.
Yeah.
Yep.
So, go ahead.
Well, I look at those cuts, and they're kind of concerning in the fact that there's basically 3 there that probably amount to 14,000 or so. But I look at the value of them. I really do. The value of the play, the value of debate. You can see it. You can see how it affects the people, the kids, and how valuable that is in life's lessons and learning as you go and how they're going to apply that in life. I just don't know if those are the cuts we should look at, because there's other things that might be of less value going forward into the value of life, of what they're getting out of it.
Do you see something on the previous list that you do want on there, so that I mean, it's great to say
Yeah.
those things, Kurt, but give us some direction might
Well,
help us.
I don't know, is that what we're here for today?
It is. It's to give us
Okay.
feedback, so that next week when you have to make your voting on this, you know, where do you want us to be?
You know, I'd like to look at the librarian and see what that might look like.
I'll highlight the ones and then we'll have an admin.
In agreement with that.
I just think it's good about the Schoology of how we can say with that. I don't know if there's anything else we can look at one-on-one. That, again, the main denominator here is that we went into technology. Everything else is going to be taking a back seat to technology now.
Okay, so you'd like us to look at the librarian, probably more of a 0.8, 0.5 kind of thing?
Yeah.
Okay, you want us to look at that? Anything else?
Go ahead, Rob.
I was just gonna, there's a point for English. I guess my question more is why?
Well, we had it on there because it's the perfect, like, it's a weird 0.4. Registration came in, we need every ounce of that. That's going to be some really full classes.
Okay.
Kids take English classes. They really, yeah, it was on there just because we thought it would be a great idea. Registration came through.
That was my reading support.
Yep,
Okay.
I have basically 2 periods a day
really thought he could.
of reading
he just-
support at the middle school. So
Then I'm assuming that's the same for the 0.5 band, that the
Yeah,
numbers
if
went up?
anything, we look like we're going to be adding concert band. We've got so many kids in band, which is great, problem to have too, but it's certainly not, yeah, those items can't be moved over because I can tell you right now we can't do it.
So the numbers changed.
Katie, you had.
I do. I just want to say that my thoughts are this. I don't want to. I really want to like try to at our top priority try not to cut these activities for these kids. I feel like they're all kind of in the performing arts or type, like the arts academics type background, and I feel like there's a lot of kids who really rely on these programs to run every year.
Okay.
And I just think that that's important to keep
Sounds
those. I guess I'm curious to where do we stand as far as class sizes with the elementaries around us? Like, I feel like 22 looks like a decent number. So I guess I grew up in a district where we had 30 kids in a class, so I have a different view. My kids grew up in Iowa
for
too.
you. We are in line with the HVL.
Okay.
We're kind of low right now, like for kindergarten looks low, but it's only because it's not really fair to say we're low in kindergarten. It's,
Yes.
They can't help it. They only have 16, 17
Well, and I
kids.
do understand behavioral.
For sure. I know you get it better than anybody.
Completely. But
No,
so
we are very in line. You don't want to compare to Hastings or any of the
right,
bigger
right,
schools because
right.
we look
I'm
very
talking
low.
like our local.
We're right in line.
We're right in line with that.
Where's
With
kindergarten at?
Kindergarten roundup, we look like 74 packets were picked up.
74.
Oh, 74, I like that. Ooh,
Well, I thought
74.
it was 67.
Yeah.
That's I thought too.
Jen, what do you have for us here on class sizes, just anecdotally even? I'd like to hear from you.
Well, being a new principal in this district, I'm inheriting a board guideline of your class size that you developed or amended in 2014.
I can pull that up for you, Jen.
It's in our packet.
So, sure, do I want that on the far right? Not at all. Because I know the clientele of students that are moving over. I also know the following year coming up after this 74 is supposed to be a bigger class. And, I mirror what the teachers say. Once they go on, right, as you continue that
Continue
domino
around.
effect
Yeah.
when we have bigger
Flopping.
coming up. It is hard. I was a middle school teacher, so I had high class sizes. Spending 6 months in the elementary has, obviously changed my mind frame on some class size stuff. I can't change anything about the board guidelines. So right now, as decided by the board in 2014, between 20 and 25 is an acceptable number for first and second grade.
Okay.
This will put us at 22 and a class size of 23. Now, I don't know if I have the numbers right, but we had 8 move-ins in first grade this year.
This year, yeah.
So if you have 8 move-ins in September, October, we're hiring another teacher. I can't imagine that phone call to tell that parent that they've just established a relationship with the teacher, but we can't foresee that. And your board guidelines say 20 to 25. So this reduction falls in with the board guidelines.
Follows in with the board guidelines. On a personal level, is 22 a large number at this, in relative terms? Is it pretty standard? Can you?
I'd like to see that number in higher grades. I don't like to see it in the K-1-2, but
Okay.
We've always kind of hung our hats on low class sizes as a drawing point for us. And by going up to 22, does that completely throw that out the window, or now we're just kind of competitive with other schools?
I think we're competitive with other schools then, but it's not, I mean, it's not, I don't know what we want to stand for. You know, I mean, do we want to stand for traditionally having this 1 or 2 years of, I mean, 75 is way different than what we thought we were going to be having. The next one is up around 100 that could come through. So it is really tough. I mean, there's plenty of studies to disprove above 22, and there's plenty to say that it, you know, it might not make a difference. I also know the clientele of kids that are coming out too, and the amount of time that I'm spending in my office with them. So when we talk about what needs to happen,
A lot of shaking heads.
when we talk about what needs to be on the right hand side, that was strictly for board guidelines.
Whenever we start on a school board as new members, we may throw out the statement that cuts are hard, we got to do them. And then you get into situations where the human element steps in and you're saying, but in this case, now we're having conversations about the extracurricular at this point in time, and maybe not as in-depth about the scholastic or educational process. 15,000, not too much, but I can remember at a time when we said, hey, 15,000, it needs to be in our fund balance. So, you know, I understand what we're talking about here, but are we placing more value in extracurricular than we are in the educational? Now we're charging the superintendent and maybe others to look for educational reductions to support our extracurricular.
And I appreciate you saying that, because I feel like we were doing what we were told to, or guided to do. So I appreciate you saying that, because we, you know, we always try to do the extracurriculars before we do. I mean, we've got a point for art on here too. That is, believe me, if this person doesn't stay with us, it is going to be extremely difficult to fill that position.
Well, the statement was almost rhetorical in nature, because
Yeah.
I get it, and you know, Kurt speaks with a passion about we got to find 15 grand. That's what we need to do for our kids. But at what expense? That's my question, and I guess it isn't really a question that we can answer right now. But we need to find enough money to have our fund balance increase instead of decrease.
Right.
And at 290 or at 280, it will increase slightly. Now, do you want it to stay at 7? Then we can probably make some of these we can probably not make some of these changes.
Even if we went to 9%, we'd be at 237 for cuts. We're going to win 0.5% down.
But as Kurt says, some of those are soft cuts. Are we going to have to deal with them later? And is that fair to get the same group in here next year and maybe have the same discussion with just some minor changes?
Is it possible to get an idea what all the add-ons to our district costs were in the last 5 years?
What do you mean add-ons?
Well, you know, I know one-on-one was in the last 5 years, special programming. What has changed in those 5 years? So we can look back and say,
What's
okay.
changes? We were at
students.
1,700 kids, and we're now at 1,100
Understood,
kids.
but there's been changes too.
But your overall budget has coincided with that.
Yeah, well,
We used to have German, we used to have
Right.
FACS, we used to have 4 principals.
Right.
We used to have, when I started here, it was 6 sections.
understood,
Yeah,
understood.
yeah.
But can we find out what has changed? Because there's been changes. We've added some programming. And I don't know what that is. It's been so much that's gone through. Just what things have come about in the district in the last 5 years for add-ons versus just teacher salaries. You know what I'm saying? It's a big task, but I'd like to get a big picture of where we're at with everything and what the extra costs are. I know that one-on-one initiative, that takes the main.
It's the only add-on, I know that's
Right.
what you're referencing, it's
Right.
300,000.
So let me
that's
ask
the
the question this way then. Are we sacrificing teachers for technology that's not showing that it's as effective as the efficacy of it? It's a great tool, but is it as efficient and is it as effective as we want? Are we riding this wave?
Well,
And we're going to
maybe make the
sacrifice.
recommendation of.
Let me finish.
Okay.
We're sacrificing teachers for the value of something that's out there that everybody's doing, with no studies out there that show that it's valuable in the sense that they're getting better scores. But it's a tool, and I'm not saying we get rid of it by any means, okay? We've invested it, everybody's there. But are we looking at it in the right way, or should we look back and say, look, we don't need it here. Some teachers don't want it at all. It's not good for the curriculum, it's not good for the lesson plans. They want to do it this way. But we're kind of going around and we're saying, no, we're going to all get on board and we're going to do this, and yet we're losing the value of the teacher.
But can you please, I'm begging you, with every ounce of me, please come to a classroom. Please visit these schools and watch what they're doing. Because Kurt, you're making comments about technology for the 10th time on things you won't even come watch them do.
No, but I hear from teachers that. I can come in here and I can watch, but it doesn't mean that I know what they're doing, but I can listen to teachers and say, you know, I don't need this. You know,
so would you like this the tech to be higher? Is that you're on the tech committee?
No, this is why we're here. No, this is why we're here. I'm just saying, let's look at this in a healthy way and say, look, you know, because I think we've committed so much that we don't want to get off this wave and look back and look at it healthy and say, where do we need it? Where don't we need it? Is iPads necessary in every class? Do we need it for every class subject? I don't know. And that's why I'm coming to you, and that's why we're brainstorming now. It's like, where can we save? Because the biggest changes are $300,000 a year in technology. And if we don't do something there, we're going to start cutting teachers and programs. And we can look at and we can say, you know, we're cutting education. We might cut education over debate and the play, but that is so valuable. And so we don't want to look at anything else except, I bring up technology. Oh, no. And it's like, no, let's look at it in a healthy way. What can we do?
Okay, listen, Kurt, we're cutting $30,000 from the 10% of the overall tech budget, and they're cutting $5,000 for non-new devices for K through 1.
Right.
And we're also talking about going to bring your own device, which will cut down on the leases that we have for.
Right.
So I think we are looking at that.
I think so too. I'm just wondering if there's anything else in certain ways. Is it in programming going forward? You know, are we going to need these programs? Because, look, really, if we look at our budget, we got to find this money to make our budget at whatever 8-9%. We're not there yet, and there's soft cuts, and we're afraid to make the hard cuts, and we're going to have to do it. And everybody's kind of afraid to do it.
If we even cut down to 9.25 on the fund balance, we'd be able to keep the extracurriculars.
I don't think we can.
Yeah, we can. At 9%, we'd only need $237,000 cut.
I thought 9% was 275.
Well, I'm looking at this right here.
I think your conversation is certainly, to me, it's best served at the committee level where you can argue the point out and bring it forward in a unified manner from the committee. And it's like other things, we can hash over this, but it doesn't. I don't think we're going to make any more changes to the technology department than the 10% we're cutting at this point in time. I think your conversation is more about a bigger picture of where we're going in technology, best served, I think, by the technology committee. In my personal opinion.
I'm just surprised you didn't bring it up there, because you bring up some really good points.
No, I brought it up. And it's just, we have general discussion. It's like, is it going to be in programming going forward? You know, because we have a $65,000 budget for, what is it, what was it, 65 for the curriculum. And I'm not saying it, but we need to look at those things, because at one time, we were told that we weren't going to have to worry about buying curriculum for one-on-one initiative. But it's changed, everything's changed, and so this is another thing that we have to look at, and it's another cost that we have to incur. So I'm not saying I have the answers, but I think we have to look at it in a healthy way and really seriously look at where can we make these savings, because the next thing is teachers. If we're going to make budget, we're going to have to look at teachers.
I think we've always got one eye on the enrollment issues, and we've talked about the kindergarten to be for at least 6 months, biting our nails, wondering where that's going to be. Is that going to be at 56 for some reason? I remember our past superintendent, as he was doing his exit, Mr. McGuire. A demographic study had at that point said we were going to lose 400 students over about a 15-year span. That was projection, and I was new on there, and I couldn't figure out where they ever got those numbers and how real they could be when you're looking into the future that far. But it was right on. And each time we're projecting kindergartners, it seems to be right on. And next year, the following year on the low end, it seems to be upper 90s to even higher. Now, if we're using our past history, that says that our enrollment is going to increase, therefore our revenue is going to increase by a like amount. So on one hand, we talk about soft freezes and whether or not that's viable to not be concerned about it. But if we use those demographic studies, and there's at least 2 or 3 of them out there, do we look at that as an outcome, or do we say, oh no, we can't guess into the future, even though it's worked in the past? So I guess my question on soft freezes would be, if we look to the future and say our enrollment's going to increase, do we take that into consideration, or don't we?
What have we done in the past?
What's that?
What have we done in the past?
As far as?
Taking future enrollment into consideration.
It's been a while since we've had the conversation about reductions.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not sure.
We tend to react to it versus proactively.
Plan for it.
Right. It's hard to do because the 3 different sources all have 3 different numbers. And so that's frustrating too. But we tend to react to registration versus planning for it.
Yeah. If we've had 3 different sources, where do those numbers lie? Is one of them 68 and the other one 100 and the other
no,
one?
Jake and both of our projection numbers are pretty similar for next year. For the class of 2031 or 32, whatever. I looked at that today.
We don't want to deal with that in the future, but
Right.
what are the demographics telling us as far as what you've gleaned so far?
I've got 106.
The birth records I see in Goodhue County, which some of them could be Goodhue School District, or in our area is 120 is what I have, but they'll go other places as well.
So on the low end, we could be looking at 88. On the high end, we could look at 100 plus.
Yeah.
Is that something as a board that we should take into consideration? Or like soft cuts, do we say, oh no, we can't plan for that, we don't know if it's hitting here, even though our history says it's been pretty spot on?
I guess I'd like to see more data on, I know we've got the projected numbers and we've always had projected numbers. What percentage actually have we been accurately with? For projecting between 100 and 120, what did we project for this year and how close are we in last year?
This year's pretty in line. Last year's way off.
So the projections were way off.
They weren't even close. We should not have had 30. We had 67, and only 1 student didn't come here that was supposed to come here. None of our numbers matched up with that. We were supposed to be in the 90s.
Yeah, see, I would like to see the history, see how good are they, if we're going to take it into consideration, because 120 we end up with 80, that's a huge number difference.
And my site is the 106. So.
Right. The only other thing I wanted to add is, I see the tech, and Kurt and I, we've talked at the tech meetings about this. I see transportation on here, and I know we've done a ton of stuff with facilities, but I don't see anything on here with facilities for any type of savings.
We looked at everything. If we're missing something, please tell me, but we met 3 different times. We've gone through it, fine-combed through the budget. I can't find anything in facilities. And as a matter of fact, when we got the study back for the square footage it was crazy. We're at 50,000 square feet per custodian when the average is 18,000. Even our custodial staff just showed how low we were. We're doing our own snow plowing. We went through like paper budget because I thought we're going to get crazy with some of these ideas. It's so minimal now. We spend nothing in those areas that we used to. So I looked through everything. The facility committee looked through everything. I just think we're as dry as we can get there. I really, really do.
No department runs that late.
When you think of that personnel, at one point in time we had, this is all memory, but it's pretty good, 13 full-time and part-time custodians we had, and that was about 10 years ago. And now we've got 6.
Well, including the staff, then I understand.
I'm not looking at staff, I'm looking at, because we update our facilities, is there savings that we can find in the facilities? Not, I know we're bare bones for
already
people.
reaping those benefits, the LED lighting, the electricity, the boiler, all those things. Gas is down.
Then electric doubled.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
We reap the rewards of that And thank goodness we did it, because the price of it doubled.
Yeah.
Imagine if we hadn't done
Yeah,
it,
they kind of remember that
we'd
year
really be in a
diesel went to
pinch.
$5 a gallon.
So we're trying to increase our fund balance, and currently it's just slightly under 7. And if we follow through with the Finance Committee recommendations of 291, that puts us at 9.25, so a nice increase.
9.5.
Okay. Are we committed to 9.5 as a board? Or are we saying, you know, it's nice to increase our fund balance, but even if we do it by 1.5%, it's a gain? What do you think if we would lower our expectations? Not the superintendent wants to hear. The more fund balance, the more there is. So, would you say that if we're at 8.75 and we lose 0.75%, that's a good thing? We're still gaining in our fund balance, and we're doing the things we need to do.
Well, at 9%, we would have to cut 237,000. So if we even went 9.25 or somewhere in between 9.5 and 9, we could still save these extracurriculars.
Does it solve Kurt's conversation about soft freeze versus hard freeze? It doesn't.
I'm not sure I followed that really.
Well, I'll throw even another one, telecommunications on the list.
Just for the
That was
1
one
year.
time.
I'm not sure who all has telecommunications to the district, but I'm gonna make the assumption, I know you're on your own plan, but Tim and Jen and Dave, I'm sure has a school phone. And in my opinion, that's a tool. Not only can they do their shutdowns, if we have to go into lockdown, they can do it off their iPad, they don't have to be in the school, or they can do it off their phones. And I know Dave can look at all the buildings to make sure they're functioning correctly when he could be in Montgomery. But I don't know how many employees of the district have phones. I know those 3 do. But my opinion is if there might be some savings, and again, because I don't know how many people have it, but I know they do. But I think it's important for the district to supply them with a phone because it's a tool for the job. That's my opinion on it.
I believe in doing a stipend of a percentage, but if they're doing personal on the business phone.
It's unlimited, so that part doesn't make any difference, but how many phones are we handing out? You know,
Well, that's part of it,
are we
but-
giving out 10 phones and only 5 people really need it? I don't know that.
I guess the whole evaluation of that. But, I mean, I guess I've been always under the school, it's like a car. If you gotta drive to get to work, who owns the car? If you're gonna have a phone, if you're gonna use it for work, but it's a personal phone, compensate somewhat, but why do we pay for the phone completely as a district? Again, cost savings. So the school kicks in a percentage of the cost to help with that, for that part of the phone usage. And we know it's unlimited, we know that it's all into a package, but for good business sense. That's what I guess I would look at.
I guess I never thought about it that way.
Yeah.
I just don't wanna see the phones get taken away from the ones that really need the phone.
Right, no, I agree.
For a number of them, it's important to have them. But yeah, point well taken.
What I hear you saying is maybe make that a half. Kurt, I hate to go back this because you and I don't agree on this, and it's obvious we don't agree on this, but what do you want for the tech? Would you like to see a 15%? A 20%? Where do
Well,
you?
that's not my call, I don't think.
Well, you bring it up so much. I do think you have a strong call on this. What do you want it to be so we can just be done with the conversation?
I just think we need to just look at it and see what things are really going to be necessary going in the future, like next year and the year after, programming for a one-on-one
We just
initiative.
did that at the tech meeting.
Understood,
You were
but
part of that.
now we're talking about a budget that we're
Okay.
trying to make. You know,
Okay.
things change.
Let's pull this into,
I just need to write down what.
we're making a 10% reduction in the program. That's pretty
It's
significant.
the biggest we've ever made in.
I'm sorry, but can I just ask one more thing? How about the trainer? Is that something, how often are they here versus the games, and what's the need
We
there?
had that on there, you know, when this started, the program started, the trainer was about $11,000. Mayo did a great thing. It's close to 20 now, and so why it was on the original list that we all brought forward was, how did we write that on there?
Only game.
Only games. The problem with that is like football and things like that, they use the trainer a lot at practice, but that is something we could still look at if you wanted. It's just, know that, you know, if a kid overheats and it's August, and, I mean, do we want them there at those things other than just the games?
I've
You know.
certainly officiated at games where somebody's going down, and I'm really glad there's somebody there to help them other than me. I can't help them out.
Yeah, and Mayo gives us a great deal. I mean, we know $20,000 is a steal on a trainer. It's just,
Just didn't know how long, how
yeah,
much they're here. You know, for
yeah,
the
they're
value.
here every day
Okay.
for after school, and they are in the. She has a room in the back, a trainer's back there, so it's
Okay.
quite a bit.
I'm
We
sorry
asked-
about that.
Beth, are you saying that what Lisa suggests, that the 2,640 kept for school action?
That'll be in that 30,000
That's
for
going to
sure.
be already included in the
She made some great
30,000.
points. I couldn't agree with her more. K2 should have a strong voice in
But
it.
that's already included.
That would be part of that
10%.
30,000. It's just, that would give money that they could use in technology in a different way. We could up it to the 32.6 and make it 30,000 plus the K2 Schoology. We could certainly do that if everyone agreed to that. I could actually change that now. 32.6 helps your overall budget if you're interested in that. That would be something you found above the 30,000, because we know we've already found the 30. That would be something that Kurt and I could not argue about. That'd be great.
Because I'm not so worried about the soft cuts that are just for this year, knowing that the projections are for higher enrollments next year. I mean, we can't bank on that, but I wouldn't be that afraid of a soft cut for, to wait and see.
Sure, that's
Rob
true.
brought up an excellent point there. I didn't realize that 64 to 67 was actually projected to be much higher. So it's hard to hang our hat on it, but board, what are you thinking about that 9.5? That was the recommendation from the finance committee, but it doesn't mean that we stick with it. We've all got things that we've discussed that are near and dear to us, and do we pull some of that off the table and say,
Do you want to see what that looks
We're
like if
okay.
you pull them off? I mean, you
Yeah.
can see the document if you took a hearing debate off. I'm hearing cheerleading off.
We've got 14 now, so.
I'm hearing musical off. Candle.
I think that could maybe go to community ed or.
Okay. And the dance, we know that they've agreed to that. That one is fine.
I don't know about the.
So that puts you at 267. And what number did you
See,
need?
that's still over 9%, according to this chart.
and what's best for our educators in the primary numbers? Are we just saying, yeah, that's a nice number, we'll stay with that? We're giving a lot of conversation to our extracurriculars, and rightfully so. But at the same time, where are we with our educational things? Is our primary okay at 22.3? Are you all okay with that? Or is there-
Would that cut mean losing a teacher or letting someone go, or do we have other staff
That's a good question.
reductions happening by attrition, say, retirement?
Art is definitely a cut to a staff member. The elementary cut, we don't know yet. We've got several people talking about retirement. We talked about some incentives that we can't do. Preschool is moving over into the regular contract, and so there'll be some non-tenured possibly in that area as well. So it absolutely could mean a staff member losing their job, absolutely.
So to kind of try and balance, maybe we can try and take from both. I was kind of wondering what the rationale was on the Interact Advisor. So I think that there's a lot of overlap with Interact between NHS and Student Council, and I think sometimes NHS or Student Council can kind of pick up at what Interact does, whether that be more or other activities. So I was kind of wondering what's the,
We just had
idea on
such
that.
high numbers in it. It really comes down to that. We have so many kids signed up for Interact that
Yeah.
that's what it came down to.
And there's no fee for that either or anything.
Folks,
Could we still look at,
Yep, scroll where?
Does that give you an update?
It gives us the 67.
No, we're still looking at, you guys looking at a point for the librarian position.
We sure can if you would like. 0.5.
Well, I think you talked about a 0.8 instead, and I don't know.
Tim would have
It
to.
was,
I can't schedule for this 0.8.
No.
That means that person will only be here one period, and I need at a minimum 2.
because I know you guys were talking about relooking at that
It's
over
a
the
point.
next week or so.
That's why we had said 0.5 was about the only
Okay,
thing he could
so
do.
the 0.5, okay.
And I'd just like to say, that I know that that position doesn't seem like it's valuable, but there's an awful lot of support provided for my other staff by having that person there. Just
I would
want
like to see
to say that.
Any staff
Anything you talk
position
about
is-
staff
staff is
reduction,
a hard-
there is an impact. There, and it may not seem like a lot, but there's pretty significant impact.
I just kind of wanted to recap. I mean, that was one of the things that we talked about. I'm not saying that it's a done deal, but
Yeah.
with looking at all the numbers, I know we're looking at the English, we said numbers changed, and the .5 band, the numbers changed. .4 art, we talked about, but you said that would be extremely tough to find someone at a .4. I was just recapping what we were.
0.6. 0.4 is the reduction. 0.6 is the step.
Right, sorry,
Yeah.
0.6.
Yep, that's okay.
So I was just looking at, because we're looking at the numbers at a total, if that gets looked at as we start, massaging the numbers for the activities.
It should be an option.
Yeah, and I'm not taking anything away from that position. I'm just, because we talked about looking at it, I just
Right.
wanted to see
Yeah.
what it would look like, both numbers, and then
Well, I
still
was
the
the
same
one-
argument.
I was the one who put it on the list to
Right.
begin with, because that's what we have to do. We
Right.
have to look at everything. But I just want to, like I said, I just want to state publicly that
Right.
not having that position is not a zero impact
Oh.
on the school and not a zero
Well,
impact on my
If
staff.
that was the case,
I
it
think
would
all
have
of
been
them
done
are.
already.
All of them are.
You know
Yeah.
what I mean? It would have been done already. So, no, I get that. Now, the other question, I guess, or thought is, we're working at different percentages. Would it make sense? Because I think years ago, the administration brought to the board maximum cuts. What would be a little bit easier and make it a
That's
little
kind
bit.
of what these are, these 3 columns.
Right, but we're really kind of focused on the right-hand side. Would it make sense? Because then you're talking about the percentages. If we give direction that says, okay, let's look at 9.5, or whatever that percentage is, and what they would recommend at those levels to be.
That really, I mean, well,
We've done the 9.5 when we walked in the door here. I think
Right,
that's.
so you're talking about 9. What number are we trying to hit?
What did you say, 9?
Well, 9.5 was 291, this is what we ran at our last.
Yeah.
Where do we want our fund balance to be, I think. is
you
our-
already gave me a direction.
Oh, yeah, right. What I'm saying is we're kind of massaging that today again, with the question is what percentage do we want to be at? To think about it, if we say today, well, let's go 8.5, do we want to do that today, or do we say, what would 8.5 look like, and what would you recommend at 8.5 if that's our decision?
You are in a
Or not.
timeline if you are going to release staff. So the next one will be, you'll be making the decision.
I
So
know.
that's why I'm trying to create the list kind of for you today.
Right.
So would we create the issue with you to take care of 8.5% and bring it
Is
back?
that what you're at?
8.5
Well, I'm
would
looking
be
at
183,000.
I thought we voted before on
You did.
A, B, and C. What does the board want to do? A would be 10%, B would be 9.5, and C would be 8.5. And then we as a board
did
could
that last
say,
time. You gave us, you already kind of voted on what you wanted as the percentage.
We went,
You did that last
the
time. We have it
recommendation
in
was
the minutes.
9.5%, but if we go with 9.37, we can not have to do some of
Sure.
these hard cuts.
Are you okay with the
As a percentage,
264
rather
that's
than
on
budget.
here?
And I don't think anybody remotely anticipated we're gonna be at 7 after the, I think
We're always
that,
at around 7 or 8 then.
We are,
We
but
are.
That's where you end up
why we want to
being.
improve that fund balance, and,
But this is what we have to go through to see what it would look like, what would we have to cut to hit 9.5.
Right.
If we can just slightly reduce that, save some things that are important to the school, then that would be my recommendation.
your recommendation would be what? Say it one more time.
To slightly reduce the percentage to be able to save
Be
some
able
of
to
these
save, yeah.
activities and things that we don't want.
Okay, so I took those off.
Yeah.
Are you wanting anything else off?
I think we need to think about that.
Yeah.
I'd like to see.
Yeah, I
First
do.
gift teacher is tough,
Okay.
but,
So pull that one off?
well,
So then you have to look at what's on the other sides, right?
Yep.
I mean, that is within our guidelines of, in class sizes for first and second. And if you made that 4 sections, you're going below our guideline, going below 20.
4 sections of 16.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's just,
When you think about that,
it's
that's
nice,
It's
it's
great.
wonderful,
It's great, but
but is
But
it
when we
realistic?
can't afford it.
Yeah.
But is it gonna change next year?
Well, can we see
Next
5
year we're
years
expecting an
history
increase.
emailed to us of the projected numbers, all three of them, what the actual numbers were that did come in?
That would be a Lori question. I don't know if we can
Just,
do that.
yeah, if we're gonna, we wanna throw into the equation projection numbers for next year.
Oh, that
Can we
question.
look to see-
I thought he meant cuts.
No, can we look at how accurate or how far off those projections have been in the last 5 years? I know you gave us a quick 1-2 year, but can we do like a 5 year to say, because you guys get 3 numbers for projections, right? Or 2.
So finding out that the projection for next year would be off would change your mind on things, is what you're saying?
No, it's part of the equation, the way it sounds at this table, that if our numbers are projected to be at 100, we may not need to go as low this year. But how much credit do we give that 100 if we don't know how much credit we give the last 5 years?
How accurate has it been the last 5 years?
Right,
That's
Yeah.
so
what I
we
know.
need to
Yeah.
see the numbers.
The only thing I know is it's been within 12 kids every single year.
Except
I've
2
been
years ago,
super-
you said it was in the 60s. We're supposed to be in the 90s, we came in
Right,
the 60s.
and I was just gonna finish by saying
Okay.
that 1 year that no one was
Right.
correct.
So could we see that?
I
Is
I
it
will do
difficult to
my
get?
very, very
Okay.
best. I don't know if I can still pull that down.
Okay, I'm just, again.
We're always looking ahead, we've never looked behind, so I don't know.
Right, and I don't say we don't look at projections, Bob. I'm just, numbers don't lie. It's how do we use those numbers to determine the value of them?
What's the rate of error?
Yeah.
Some
Right.
projections.
I'm not defending numbers at all, I'm just saying, due to our history, that's what we've been dealt. Are we able to have projections sent, or have different percentages sent to us, or is that against some kind of law that we shouldn't
Percentages,
have?
what do you mean by percentages?
Well, we're hearing all kinds of stuff. If you sent us 8.5 and here's our recommended.
There's the sheet, I already sent that to you. That
All
one
right.
is.
But this
that-
doesn't tell us what.
On the board up there, you mean, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, if we were going to 8.5, what would the administration recommend at 8.5? What is it, well, that's kind of what I was saying earlier.
That's
Is we gave you a
180,000.
Want to set aside
9.5.
tomorrow and work on that all
We
day?
gave them 291 and we're not
If you
listening.
go 8.5, you can keep the first
That's because we don't know what 291 looked like. Now that we see what 291 looks like, we're hearing from the public, is this time for us to look at it again and say, okay, if we're not going to be firm on the 291, which is a part of the discussion, what would something less look like from the administration? Do you guys breathe a little bit of sigh of relief or not?
Okay, it immediately, I think I can speak for the admin team, it's always staff. Anytime we can save a teacher, that's what we're gonna take off. So you taking off the extracurriculars is a different philosophy. We would go immediately to the first grade, the art, immediately, we would take off staff. So you can assign us to do that, but I think I speak for
Well, but the thing about the
both teams.
extracurriculars, that's just like
Yep.
$15,000.
Yep,
It's not a
exactly.
salary that's.
I like what you're doing on here. I think this is great. What you're tasking us to do is different than what you tasked us to do last time, and we can do whatever you want us to do. We really can. We can do that.
Brenda, what does 9 look like?
Is there another way to save those extracurriculars?
This is the time to ask. If we don't ask now, when do we ask?
Right.
And I'm not trying to put you guys through more work.
We asked them for 9.5. We're on 9.
You're gonna hear his announcement for compensation.
It's 237 at 9.
Sounds like
$60,000.
we can see the
I'm just,
extracurriculars.
this is,
Boosters, volunteer, average cost. Those are our three for however we can do
I
extracurriculars.
think
And
you
there's
need to
no
recruit to get more people in there. That's all I'm saying.
Well, that's very true, for sure.
Okay, but with cheerleading, I thought we had the numbers. We had 14,
That's true.
so that we don't
So
need.
cheerleaders-
So I took them off. They're off
Right.
Parents and teachers, please thank you for coming to tonight's conferences. Conferences wrap up at 8 o'clock. If you need to schedule additional time with the teacher, please make plans to do that. Have a great night and drive safely home.
For debate, you need to get more kids to sign up, get over 12.
Yeah.
Let's pull it in. Let's give a unified recommendation. Do we just do 240, make it happen? Or do we, Kurt and I are on the finance, we were well in favor of the 291, we were there. The human end of things changes.
What the heck? Technology, I don't get it. It was off. Sorry.
Famous last words.
Can we make a recommendation to our admin? We don't want them to spend all their waking hours on this, but at the same time, you know, we've changed our plans
It's okay,
here.
Bob. We only worked the last 10 weeks on what you told us to do. It really isn't that big of a deal.
I feel like there's some sarcasm.
You're getting this. You are. You're ready.
On the other end of things, we're tasking them to enhance what we've been talking about, not to make more reductions. I think that's a real positive thing to throw in their lap. But what are the priorities? We know what they are, educationally designed, but if we just add art and another primary teacher, then we're looking at, that's
So
it.
really, you're asking us to find, you're allowing us to take $24,000 off, is what you're really doing.
24,000 in addition to what we've already taken off.
Really,
Yeah.
can I tell you, just because I happen to have this here from our last meeting, the 8.5 would be a cut of 103,000, which is, the fund balance would be 1,058,300. At 9% would be a cut of 237,000, and it would be 1 million. Well, that was 1,058,000. At 8.5, it would be 1,004,000. So it's a difference of $50,000 in the fund balance. If we go with 9.5, it's the cut of 291, which we're talking about, and then we have 1,112,000. So it's another $50,000 difference in the fund balance. That's what we're talking about in these percentages. Basically, between
But keep
half
in
a
mind, you
percent.
know, the city just gave us this assessment, and there's a lot of things. We have 3 special ed. Am I correct? And we will meet as an admin team tomorrow.
6:30 a.m.
Right now.
Okay.
We have
Donuts, it's Tuesday.
Discussion is over.
I'll make a motion to end the meeting.
No.
Hey, you made a motion, second. You gotta act on it.
You see what's coming up in the next few meetings, and we may have as animated a meeting as before here. But anything else you need to get on, knowing that our next meeting might be as lengthy as this one, you can still throw it on.
So we can pack a lunch.
At this, you probably should. At this point in time, I would look for a motion to adjourn.
I'll make a motion.
Motion by Jerry, seconded by Rob. Further discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? We are closed. Thank you for coming, everyone.